Good afternoon to all, and welcome to the last sessions for this compensation and reward management system. We have already covered up this block 1, 2, and 3 in our previous sessions, where we have understood the details of this compensation and rewards. We have understood the basic processes that has been adopted in the organization for the compensation and reward management. We have understood the various legalities that has to be taken consideration taken into consideration for the compensation and reward management. We have also discussed the ways in which this compensation management administers the equity principles and fairness principles in the organizations. We have understood the basic processes of job evaluation. We have understood the basic processes of wage surveys to ensure external equity, all of those things. And in this last part of our study of compensation and reward management, we'll look into the various reward systems, and we'll look into the various incentive systems, and we'll also see how this compensation management is linked with the employees' motivation and the job satisfaction of the employees. So let us start with the basics of these reward systems that are been taken into consideration by these organizations. Now, when we do talk of these reward systems, what is the need of these reward systems for the organizations? What are the essentials of this? Now, we have understood that any such person who contributes in terms of physical efforts and mental efforts are provided with certain monetary and non-monetary benefits. But when we do talk of these monetary benefits, the basic remuneration package consisting of these basic wages and dearness allowance. We have also understood that in detail. That basic wage refers to the standardized pay structure in relation to the organizational hierarchy or in relation to the jobs. And as the jobs or the compensation packages cannot be revised frequently, so to cope with the inflation, cost of living index, this dearness allowance has been included as a part of the basic wage. But still, even if we do take that, this basic wage and dearness allowance makes the base of this remuneration system, but we need to understand that the scenario is frequently changing. Nowadays, we witness a frequent change in the job situations, a frequent change in the environment, in the frequent change in the economic aspects of the things. And besides that, we do talk of the impact of social, technological, political factors over the compensation administration. All of those things calls for a frequent change in the basic aspects of the remuneration. But it is perhaps it will not be possible to change all of those things. No, it is not possible to revise those compensation and administration practices from very frequently, and that is the reason to enable the workers to cope with these kind of changes. And when we do talk of these workers to maintain their livelihood or maintain their physical and mental satisfaction, so they need to be provided with certain other amenities of their life, which may be in terms of certain financial or non-financial aspects. And that is the reason why various types of allowances are administered by the organizations for these employees of the organization. And we do talk of the fringe benefits also, the non-monetary benefits or monetary benefits, which is not a part of the payroll administration, but is administered to take care of the requirements of the employees in the organization. Right? So all of those things are administered to ensure that employees do have a comfortable livelihood at the organization itself. So let us just go through some of the basic aspects of this reward system and the allowances that are normally administered in the organization. So we have already discussed that this basic wage refers to the fixed amount of monetary compensation which has been associated with a particular job on the basis of the weightage that are given to the job. That is what we have understood through the process of job evaluation, that all the jobs are first analyzed to understand the basics of job description, the factors that comprises the job, and on the basis of the skills, effort, knowledge, hazards involved, the occupational hazards, all of those things are taken into consideration to define the weightage of that job in the organizational hierarchy, what we call it as the ranking of the job, and on the basis of that, assigning certain monetary worth, we do define a particular amount which is associated with that particular job in the organization. So that refers to the basic wage, or somehow rather we do call it as a pay structure, pay band, but it is the amount which is associated with the jobs in the organizational hierarchy on the basis of their wages. That is what we need to understand. When we do talk of dearness allowance, as we have already discussed many times before, that these dearness allowances are provided to cope with the inflation, right? To cope with the increasing cost of living index, increasing consumer price index itself, right? And has been taken as an integral part of the basic pay. So basic pay will include this basic wage plus this dearness allowances. Right? So the objective is to compensate the employees with the loss of real income, as we have understood that this loss of real income is there because of the increase in the consumer price index, wholesale price index, or the retail price index. We have understood the impact of this cost of living index itself. So the dearness allowances are revised from time to time by the appropriate government, by the central government or the respective state governments, and they do constitute a basic part of the basic pay. Beyond this, when we talk of this dearness allowances, certain other things that we need to consider regarding this administration of dearness allowances. Now, this dearness allowances can be calculated in two different ways. Either it can be calculated excluding the consumer price index numbers. So it's not linked with the consumer price index numbers, or it can be calculated having a linkage with the consumer price index. So here we do come out with the flat rate of dearness allowance. Flat rate of dearness allowance is that all the employees, right, irrespective of their categories or the wage scales, they will be paid with the dearness allowance. All the employees will be paid with the dearness allowance, irrespective of their categories or wages, right? So what it says that now, even if we do have differences in terms of the jobs in the organizational hierarchy, but DA is applied to all those kind of jobs in a uniform way. That's a flat rate of DA. When we talk of this graduated scale, the graduated scale says the dearness allowance is paid according to the different wage scales. So dearness allowance may be administered as a percentage to the compensation or the remuneration associated with a particular wage scale. A flat rate of D is a flat amount which is given to all the workers irrespective of their positions, categories, wage scales. But graduated rate is a DA which is in terms of a percentage to their wage scales, right? So we can think of that. Right? But when we do talk of this, this is the flat rate, and this graduated rate is not linked with the consumer price index. But when we do calculate this DA linked with the consumer price index, we do come out with the administration in a bit different way, where a flat rate of DA linked with the consumer price index is that the DA rate has to be linked with the point or the scale which is fixed, and whenever there is a variation in the point of the consumer price index numbers, right? So the DA will be applicable on that. So any such variation in the consumer price index number will lead to an increment in the DA as per the fixed scale. So each and every point is given with certain point values. based on that only the DA is calculated. But this DA can also be calculated as a percentage to the pay, even if it is linked with this consumer price index itself. And what it says that for each slab of the consumer price index number, a DA is linked. Right? So a percentage of dearness allowance will be applicable for each slab of the consumer price index number. Right? So basically, we need to understand that this D is nowadays most of the organizations they're making an application as per the graduated scale or the percentage of pay itself, right, linked with CPI. So what we need to understand is that for calculations of this DA, the entire thing is completely based on the consumer price index, and any variations in the consumer price index will lead to a revision of the DA percent. So normally, as per a standardized practice, this DA is revised in its 6 months time and is added to the basic pay till the basic pay is revised by the pay commissions or the wage boards, as we have already discussed. So this is how this dearness allowance is administered in the organization itself. We do talk of the various allowances that are administered in the organization. Different organizations nowadays they do come out with different sort of allowances. So if I do take a list of all of those allowances, it can be like 40, 40, 50, 60 kind of numbers. So different nomenclatures can be used. However, we need to understand some of the basic allowances that are to be administered by the organizations, which may be common for all the organizations, right? So here is a list of some of the allowances that are administered. So the first such important allowances is this house rent allowance. What we need to understand is that most of the organizations they are situated in urban areas or in such areas where getting a house accommodation is not an easy affair for the workers. So if they do take these houses on rent, they have to spend a hell lot of money for this rent purpose, which will make them uncomfortable, which can be deducted from their basic earnings. So that is the reason to make the workers comfortable to have a stay or have a living in that locality. These house rent allowances are administered. So house rent allowances can be administered either in a flat rate, or these house rent allowances can be linked with the job scales itself. So depending on the nature of the job, the different house rent allowance can be administered. So it can be different from the executive 1, 2, 3 level to executive 4, 5, 6 level. So the organizations do come out with their own policies related to this house rent allowances. But wherever there is housing facility being provided by the organization to the employees, to understand, so they do charge a very nominal price from the employees itself as a house rent, right? Which is much, much, much lower than the market rate of that particular house on rent. So where there is no such housing facility being provided, house rent allowances are being given to the workers to cope with the demand of their life. Similarly, a common allowance is leave travel allowance. It can be administered as this leave travel assistance or leave travel concessions itself, LTA, LTC, leave travel allowance is what we call it as. Now the basic purpose of this leave travel allowance is to motivate the employees to refresh themselves, re-energize themselves by visiting to different places. So like most of the time it is administered when you complete a particular number of years of service in a particular organization. You are entitled to get a trip with your family members to any such tourist destinations or vacations, right, where the entire cost of your travel and stay with your family members, right, has to be subsidized with certain allowances, right? So we call it as the leave travel allowances. Now, as a part of the fringe benefit, what we can say that different organizations, they do have different holiday houses in different tourist destinations. So if you are leaving, or if you are going for a family trip with those kind of destinations, so you will have an absolute free stay in those kind of holiday homes. But if you would like to move some other places where these holiday home kind of things are not available or not being facilitated by the organization, so they are provided with this leave travel allowances or leave travel concessions, leave travel assistance. Different ways, different nomenclatures can be there. Okay. So the objective is to re-energize yourself, re-energize, rejuvenate your own enthusiasm, and once again, when you refresh yourself, you can come back and contribute your best towards the organizations, towards the productivity. Right. Would you talk of washing allowances? Most of the time, where these organizations, they do have a dress code to deal with their consumers, right? Which is required to be neat and clean when you present yourself before the consumers. So there, the organizations do provide washing allowances. Beyond that, whenever your employees do work in manufacturing processes where they are frequently exposed to dust, fumes, right? So their dresses do, their dresses gather much of dirt and coal and all of those things. So that is the reason why, to maintain their cleanliness, to maintain their hygiene, these washing allowances are provided. Conveyance allowance, some or other. Nowadays, of course, like many such organizations have started certain facilities of pick and drop. So the organizations do have dedicated transport system which can pick you up from your location, and after the working hours it can drop you at your location. But sometimes it's not possible for the organizations to provide this pick and drop facility. So there, organizations do provide you this conveyance allowance to ensure that the expenses that you have for commuting yourself from the houses to the offices itself, that will not be a burden on the employee. Right. So the preference mode of transportation, whether you are going through a two-wheeler or a four-wheeler, whatever it may be. So the fuel expenses for the travel from your home to the office premises itself are being taken care of by the organizations through this conveyance allowances itself. And mostly you'll see that organizations which are located far away from the cities or the townships, so their employees need to spend a larger amount of money as their fuel expenses. So that has to be taken care by the organizations as a conveyance allowance itself. Similarly, another one allowance is this shift allowances. When we to talk of these organizations, mostly this plant or the organizations which runs for 24/7, 365, we call it as. That mostly these organizations do operate in 3 shifts, because as per the provisions of the Factories Act, in no case the worker should be allowed to work for more than 48 hours and 6 days a week. So on an average, each and every day, each and every employee worker is allowed to work for 8 hours. So the shift timing is like that only. Say the shift begins from morning 6 o'clock to 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock to 10 o'clock, and then 10 o'clock to morning 6 o'clock. So all those employees who will have this morning shift or afternoon shift or the night shift, their duties are being rotated so that the employees do not feel it uncomfortable to work in any of the seats for a prolonged period of time. And still, some of the employees who are working in night shift, right? So they should be provided with certain additional remuneration, additional benefit, so that they can compensate the losses they do have because of this night shift duty, right? So shift allowances are being administered, particularly those employees who carry out their night shift duties are being provided with an additional remuneration as a shift allowance, we say. Cash handling allowance, sometimes some of the people deal with huge caches, like so the cash intake and cash like outlets. So most of the time, taking a balance between these intakes to outlets, or in financial terms, the credits to the debits, whatever it may be. So chances are there that they will come out with some kind of mistakes which will make them to pay it from their own pocket itself. Yeah. So this is a very risky job of handling certain huge amount of gas. So this gas handling allowance is also being provided to the workers dealing with those kind of jobs. Lunch allowances, dinner allowances are also being provided to the workers itself. Now, wherever there are no canteen facilities available in the factory outlet, where the subsidized food is being provided to the workers, so there these lunch and dinner allowances are also provided, right? And we do talk of education allowance. Education allowance, of course, can be taken into two different ways. One is education for the concerned person himself, and education for the children of the employees, right? So when I do talk of the basic education of the employees in my factory, so if it is like a matriculation level, I must promote my employees to go for some higher education, maybe in a distance mode, right? What will not affect their day-to-day work schedule, or maybe they may go for evening classes to get their degree certificates. So employees can upgrade themselves by enrolling themselves for different sort of courses. So certain allowances are provided for that, and sometimes these allowances are provided for the education of the children of those employees itself. So education allowances are also being provided. Similarly, when we to talk of this underground allowances, this kind of allowances are particularly applied in mines. So we can think of these mines being operated in two ways. There is open cast mining. So open cast mining is not that hazardous, not that dangerous. But when we talk of these underground mines where the employees need to travel 200, 300, 400 feet below the ground level, where the conditions of work will not be that comfortable, temperature will be high, humidity will be there, lighting will be very less, all those things. So when these workers do work in those kind of unpleasant work environment or sometimes hazardous work environment, they should be compensated with certain additional limitation, what we call it as this underground allowances. Similarly, when we talk of these outstation allowances means like sometimes people are being deputed to carry out certain projects like in some remote areas, rural areas. So some organizations do administer it as outstation allowance. Somewhere you'll see that it is administered as remote area allowance, rural area allowance. When the employees do move from urban places to those rural places where they are deprived of the basic facilities, right? And to compensate with that, these outstation allowances are being provided to the workers. Similarly, we do talk of this servant allowances. No, if the organizations cannot provide you the basic, class for employees, this is normally for these higher grade jobs where these facilities of having a cook or a mali or a gardener kind of thing, so that you can focus more on your jobs. Those kind of things are being taken care of through the servant allowance. Social security allowances are also being provided if the employees of the organization are not being covered under ESI or EPF or workmen's compensation. Right? So additional benefit is given so that the employees can contribute to their part to ensure social securities. To talk of city compensatory allowances, we have discussed that before also. That nowadays the cost of living index of different cities are different. They do vary, right? So these city compensatory allowances are provided based on the cost of living index of a particular city to the employees itself to enable them to cope with the kind of changes, right? Overtime allowances, we do say. There are provisions of overtime as per the Factories Act, but it says that a person at a stage cannot be allowed to work for like 10 or 30 minutes with the normal schedule of 8 hours. So a person can be allowed to work for another 2 or 30 minutes as a overtime. And the provisions of the Factories Act says anyone who is doing any kind of overtime should be paid double the amount of the regular pay. So if the employee is working or worker is working for 2 or 30 minutes, he should get his wages for 5 hours, like that only. It is calculated like that, but some or other certain jobs requires the employee's presence beyond the normal working hours also. So they are being provided with this overtime allowances. So if we do create a list of all those kind of allowances, you'll see that there are 50 or 60 or 100 such kind of different kind of allowances being administered in the organizations, right? But you need to think of certain standardized allowances that will make the employees engaged, that will make the employees productive, that will not ensure that the employees are not being taken care of. Right? So these are the things what we need to consider. Itself. The other aspects of the thing that we need to discuss is the fringe benefits. Fringe benefits says these are the additional benefits which doesn't constitute part of the payroll system, okay, being provided by the organization towards the welfare aspects of the employees. We call them as fringe benefits, additional benefits. These are also called as non-payroll related benefits. Okay. It can be administered as a kind benefit or can be administered as a cash benefit. Okay. But the additional remuneration is being provided to the employees itself. So some of the basic aspects of these fringe benefits that we have already discussed, like the payment for the time not work, the payment for hazard protection, the payment for employee services or any kind of legal payments. I've already discussed these aspects of fringe benefits. But certain benefits which are normally being administered at the organizational level are like holiday homes, I was telling you. These are additional benefits, right? So organizations do have their own holiday homes at different locations of different tourist places itself, you can say, where the employees can take the advantage of having a free stay, free food in those holiday homes with their family members. So these are additional benefits which are being provided by the organization. See, as I told that in case of no holiday homes are there, then these employees can be provided with this LTA, LTC, just to enable them. We talk of medical facilities. Again, Factories Act says that the provisions have been mentioned. The ambulance room should be there, the tools, equipments related to that should be there. But beyond that, most of the organizations nowadays, they do have their own dispensaries where these doctors, paramedical staffs, nurses, everyone will be there, and the employees can have free treatment over there. So they have started, developing their own sorts of dispensaries in their plant premises itself. But beyond that, organizations nowadays they are going for tie-ups with different corporate hospitals where the employees can have absolutely free treatment in those corporate hospitals, having a tie-up with the organization. Okay. So giving a additional benefit to the employees to have their health preserved and maintained, right? With those kind of hospital facilities. Now, in some cases where these organizations do not have their own dispensaries or do not have their own hospitals, they used to provide medical allowances. Okay? These medical allowances can be administered as and when required, means can be reimbursed from time to time. Okay? So whatever expenses you do have, produce the bill and it can be taken care of by the organization. So this medical reimbursement allowance is well defined to the unwell-defined and notified to the employees so that they can take the benefit of that. Right. So either they can have their own hospitals, dispensaries, or they do have tie-ups with their hospitals, and they can avail the facilities of reimbursing their expenses in case of any other treatments. Right. And employees who are covered under ESI Act, Employee State Insurance Act. So we do have ESI hospitals being developed, being situated in different localities of industrial importance, right? Established by the appropriate government itself, where the employees can have free treatments for all the kind of diseases they do have. We do talk of canteen facilities, and the most important aspect is that the subsidized meal, right, which is almost around 50% of the normal cost of the meal available in the market nowadays. Right? So subsidized food in the canteen is what an additional benefit given to the workers itself, right? And this subsidized meal are applicable for all the workers, right? Maybe you'll see that different organizations do have different sort of canteens, maybe executive canteen and non-executive canteen. But mostly the organizations do have only one canteen where equal food is being served for all the employees, and employees can avail that at a very subsidized price. If we to talk of this car subsidy, yes, most of the time organizations do provide loans or say advances, right, for the purchase of vehicles, right, maybe two-wheeler, four-wheeler, whatever it may be, right? Or whenever these workers would like to exchange their vehicles for a new one, there are also certain advances are being paid to the employee itself, workers itself. So, which is being recovered at a very subsidized rate of interest. Right? So, subsidized purchases, all of those kind of things can be facilitated by the organizations. So, to talk of low interest loans being provided to the workers of the organization, right? Low interest loan, in a sense, it's much more lower than the market rate, whatever is available, right? Or the bank's rate being charged, right? Organizations, just to facilitate their employees to have a comfortable lifestyle, they provide these low interest loans. Right? Sometimes organizations facilitate the employees to have their children's education. Right? Nowadays, some of the organizations, they have started developing their own schools where large number of employees are being engaged in a particular plant, factory, or organization. They have started developing certain schools for the education of the children of the employees itself. Right? Sometimes they do have tie-ups with different sort of schools, right? Where the fee charged by the school will be nominal for these employees, and this subsidized rate would be there. Sometimes organizations do provide loans, education loans to their employees to facilitate the education of the children itself. We do talk of that, right? And most of the time we do talk of certain other facilities related to the recreation, right? Entertainment, enjoyment. So particularly you'll see that all the jobs which are routine in nature, like bank jobs, postal jobs, right? Routine in nature means there is no such challenge being involved in the job. No challenges are there. Every day you need to carry out the similar sort of activity. So that will lead to a job boredom, which is the first phase of the job dissatisfaction. Right? So unless and until you will have challenges in the job, you'll feel poor, right? So that is the reason why employees are provided with different sort of recreational facilities, right? They do have their own clubhouses where they can go for some outdoor games, indoor games, whatever they would like to do, which will energize them, which will motivate themselves, right? So that is how we do come out with the different sort of benefits. These are few such examples I had given. So different sort of benefits which are being taken by the organizations to motivate their employees, to facilitate the level of enthusiasm among their employees, right? So to talk of this fringe benefits. So we have understood the basics, the allowances and fringe benefits. Let us move to the next part of our study of today. This is what that we'll cover up in two such different classes, right? So first of all, we'll talk of the method of payment, where we do say that the system of wage payment can be broadly divided into four such categories. Now, payment based on time, payment based on productivity, what we call it as piece-based system, and there's a balanced step method which takes both the time system and the piece rate system. Right? Beyond that, we to talk of this incentive plans. Incentive plans can be divided into two ways. Like there's an industrial incentive plan, which is normally based on the individuals, their performances. So here you can say industrial incentive plan can be also called as the individual incentive plan, and there are group incentive plans. Under this industrial incentive plan, we can think of this industrial incentives to be administered in terms of time, so based on time, based on productivity. And in this group incentive schemes, we'll discuss the profit sharing, right, or the stock ownership and stock options, right? So this is what that we need to understand. Now, if we to talk of the first such thing, right, the payment that we to make on the basis of time. Now, this is one of the simplest way of calculating the wages or salaries to be paid to the workers itself, right? So it is paid on the amount of time that the worker do spend at the job itself. Right? What is the time? Like most of the time, you'll see that this payment system is applicable for the jobs which are difficult to measure. The outcome is intangible. The outcome is intangible, which are difficult to measure. That's what we need to understand, right? So here, what it happens? The basic rate of wage for this job is fixed, right? And the fixation methods are like we have discussed that it is the job evaluation method, right? Or through the method of collective bargaining, where the workers and the management representatives they decide the terms and conditions of employment, right? So the basic elements of the wages are fixed. Right? Say, as we have already discussed that minimum wages act. So what is the minimum rate of wage that should be paid? The need-based minimum wage, the fair wage, living wage, all of those things, right? How these wages are being fixed by the central government or the respective state governments, we have understood that, right? So basically, it will say that the wages are calculated as per the number of hours a person has worked in that particular organization and rate per hour. So through this proper job analysis, through proper time study, motion study, process study, so rate per hour is defined. So what is the minimum amount that should be paid to the workers, right, for their contribution? And how many hours that the employee is having, right? How many hours of work? So it's a simple calculation. So number of hours multiplied by the rate per hour will give the wages earned by that particular employee in a month, right? So here the payment by time method has got many such advantages, many such disadvantages also. Now, advantages, if you see, it is a very simple way of calculating the wages. And nowadays, with the involvement of this IT and ITES, IT enabled services, this method has still become more simpler. Right? So, what you need to do is just to keep a track of the time that the employee do spend in the place of work itself. Okay? So nowadays it is available with the time of his data when the employee enters into the organization. So they need to punch in. When they leave, they need to punch out. So the difference between the punch out timing to the punching timing, so that will give us the total number of hours that the employee has spent in that particular day. Right? So very simple to calculate, easier method we can say, and this also makes the workers feel that security in a sense, as this particular method is not linked with the productivity, right? So it may so happen like every day our productivity cannot be 100%. So sometimes it can also go less than 20% or 30%, maybe because of external factors, may it be because of our own health issues, may it be because of our personal reasons or family reasons, whatever it may be. Right? But during those times, right, where I'm not being able to contribute to the 100%, right? Shall my salary be deducted or wages be deducted? No, just to protect that. This time-based system has been developed, where we say that, okay, it is completely calculated on the basis of the hours of work that the employee has, not linked with the productivity. Right? Equality would be there definitely. Whenever we do calculate this payment by time, we always refer to a equitable wage structure. Equitable wage structure in a sense. The wages are to be defined as per the different jobs, labels, their basis in terms of the organizational hierarchy, all of those things. So when all the people in a particular pay band will be paid with similar amount, so that feeling of equality would be there with the workers itself. Less wastages will be there in a sense, though, as this particular method is not linked with productivity, only linked with the time spent. So workers can work comfortably, which will reduce the number of accidents, reduce the number of wastages because of wastages in raw material, wastages in machineries, productivity will be hampered. No? So that can be reduced to a large extent, right? So less wastages. And this is a method which is normally accepted to the trade union itself, as because we need to understand that nowadays whatever we do, we need to consult with the union members itself. So this is a method which is also accepted by the trade unions itself, right? Disadvantages, of course, are there. Like it's an inefficient system. Inefficient system means it has got no linkage of productivity with the compensation. So it is completely deviating from the principle of fairness. So all the people should be paid equally, but what about those who are contributing more towards the organization, right? So there, what we need to understand is that this is a system which is inefficient. Right? Because of this inefficiency nature only, this system lacks in terms of motivation. Right? Motivation, like where from the workers will get their motivation? Only from their monetary gain. So if they contribute, they need to earn more. To earn more, they contribute. So if they contribute, but in response, they are not getting a better benefit, why should they? So maybe the time-based system fully implemented is a disadvantage for the organization, right? And increased supervision would be there in a sense. When you do make an application of this time-based system and you are giving a freedom to the employees, can you ensure that all the employees will be dedicated to their jobs from 10 to 5 or 9 to 6, something like that. No. So there's a reason why these supervisors are appointed just to keep a track of all of those things, right? So these are the disadvantages of this time-based system that we to come out with. Now, we to talk of this piece rate system also. So here, piece rate system is based on the concept of productivity of the employees, right? What it says. So here, the you know wages are calculated in terms of the number of units produced by the employee multiplied by rate per unit. So there's a typological error. Rate per hour, it has been mentioned in the slide. So it will be rate per unit, right? So a worker is paid on the basis of the amount that he completes, right? So how it is done? Like we do see in this time-based system through this proper job evaluation and different sort of scientific studies like time study, motion study, process study. So you are fixing up a minimum amount which is to be given to the worker as compared to the time spent for that particular job. Here also same thing happens. Like here the rate per unit of output is defined. The methods are same. Like we use time study, motion study, frequency study to talk of the various other job factors into consideration, right? And that rate per unit of production is defined. Now, mostly this time rate system is applicable for all those jobs where you cannot measure the output. Output is not tangible, but where this piece rate system is being administered for those kind of jobs where the output of the job can be tangible in nature, right? So, but one thing you need to understand that this piece rate system, there is no such minimum wage which is guaranteed, right? So, earning of the members, earning of the workers will be completely based on their skill, efficiency, and worker, right? So, all of those things that will constitute a part of that. Now, here what we can understand is that the basic advantages of time-based system becomes the disadvantages of piece rate system. The disadvantages of time-rate system becomes the advantage for the piece rate system. So these are the two such plans which is completely opposing, completely different in terms of their nature, right? So here you can see the advantages that are when you give higher incentive for higher production, there is principle of fairness, but there we had equity principle. Less supervision is required over here, but in time-based system we have understood that plenty of supervision is required. Here, the remedial transfers can be possible, right? Remedial transfers in a sense if the employee is not performing up to the standard, right? In a particular job, we can think of making that employee transfer to some other jobs where his personal quality skills or experiences can be better utilized, right? So that is there. Time-based system doesn't allow for that. Disadvantages are like quality would be definitely low because there would be hurry sickness among the people to complete their task, right? Insecurity to the workers because workers do understand that if they cannot produce the required target, they're not going to get the amount desired. As such, we have understood this Taylor's era, Taylor scientific management era. So, as proposed by F.W. Taylor, the differential piece rate system. Okay? So, up to a standard production, there's a piece rate, and more than that, there's a differential piece rate, which makes the employees earning much more based on that productivity. But in case of non-productivity, so workers case very less amount. No? So that makes the workers insecure. We talk of requires more and more administration, right? say for example, keeping a track of the employees, you know, time of punch in, time of punch out, in the absence of this IT enabled services. So, isn't it a Herculean task? Because every day, workers to uh, enter into the premises of the plant with a record being maintained at the time office. You put their in time, out time, and on the basis of that, manually everything is calculated, right? So those kind of things. So hazard administration work will be there. Wastages will be more over here, right? Because people will be in a hurry to complete their job. So out of that only, they will not take proper aspects of the job into consideration, which may lead to different sort of accidents or different sort of uh, health hazards. Because they can or occupational hazards, we can say, right, which may lead them to have unemployment or disabilities, maybe temporary, maybe permanent, all of those things. So these are the disadvantages of this time, date, and piece rate system. So here we will come out with a comparison of time-based system to piece-based system. On the basis of time, okay, these are defined. This time-based system is defined on the basis of the time spent, whereas piece rate system defines on the basis of the output productivity of the workers. Efficiency. Of course, time-based system has got no linkages with the efficiency of the workers, whereas this piece rate system is directly linked with the efficiency of the workers, right? So quality, time rate system, quality will be high, right, as compared to the piece rate system. And piece rate system, the quality may be deteriorated than that of the time-based system. In a sense, like people will not have a hurry to complete a particular task. Okay, so quality will definitely be all those jobs. Like you can think of the painter jobs, the artists, where the output should be qualitative one. So they cannot make a payment on the basis of this pieces produced. Right? Supervision, close supervision is required for this time-based system, whereas piece rate system doesn't require any kind of supervision, but just to help the artisans, right? Sometimes supervisors are being allotted just to mentor them, just to guide them, or being a coach, because they have understood that if they would like to perform, they would like to be paid for that. That is the reason why this supervisor or appointment of supervisors are not that important for this piece-based system, right? Maintenance cost will be low. Normally here in piece-based system, the maintenance cost will be very high, right? So high in the sense in time rate system, they can handle the machines properly, but in piece rate system, no. Just to go for higher production, they may mishandle the machineries, equipments, which will cause much of the damages, right, to the machines itself. Production process may also be stopped out of that. Wastages will be very high chance of wastages of time would be there in this time-based system. But here, wastages will be in terms of material equipments, right? What is required to perform that particular job. And security, time-based system, the employees feel secure, right? But in piece rate system, workers feel insecure. In a sense, they do have a perception if by any chance I'll not be able to produce, then definitely I'm going to be out of the process, right? So feeling of insecurity would be there towards that. Okay? So these are the differences that you do come out with this payment basis on the time and payment based on productivity, piece rate system. We do say it's time-based system or piece rate system. Now, what we have understood is that both the systems do have certain advantages of their own and certain disadvantages of their own, right? But what we need to do is to develop a system which can remove the disadvantages of both the systems. So that is the reason why this balanced system or this debt system of payment had been devised, right? What it says that the workers are guaranteed with a minimum wage through the time-based system, but are paid with a piece rate system to contribute or to recognize their productivity, right? To recognize their productivity, they are paid with a piece rate system. Means what? Here we are making an application of both this time rate system and the piece rate system. So the minimum wage is guaranteed. Understand? The minimum wage is guaranteed as per the time based system, but incentives or higher payment are being made on the basis of the piece rate system, right? So here I have given an example of that just to illustrate how it has to be done, right? Say we say that as per the time rate, the guaranteed time rate is say rupees 400 per day, right? And out of the time study and motion study, it is observed that during a day, at least 10 units of that product can be produced. 10 unit of that product can be produced. So making it to have rupees 40 per unit of production, right? 10 units can be produced in a day, and what we are giving to the worker is 400 per day, right? So the production of each unit will make the worker liable for a payment of rupees 40, right? So here, how the payment is calculated? Like say, I have taken three such important cases, three such possibilities, right? One employee or one worker is producing 12 pieces of product, right? So we said we need to cover it up through both the payment systems, no? So here, if I have to calculate it in terms of the piece rate system, it will be 12 multiplied by 40 is equal to 480, right? So the employee is liable to get rupees 480 if he is producing 12 units. But the guaranteed time rate says the minimum amount what the worker should get is 400 rupees. Minimum that the worker should get is 400 rupees, right? So an additional 80 rupees which is gained by the worker is credited to the worker's account. The worker is liable to get that additional 80 rupees. Right? If the second case, if the number of units produced by the employee will be as per the standard 10 pieces, so his rate per piece equal to piece rate system ensures 400 rupees payment, time rate system ensures 400 rupees payment, right? So the balance will be nil, right? But in case the employee is getting or producing 8 units per day, less than that of the standard, right? So as per the piece rate system, the worker should get 320 rupees, 8 pieces, 40 rupees is, but time rate guarantees the payment of 400 rupees minimum, right? So what will happen over here then? Now the worker will be paid 400 rupees only with 80 rupees into as a minus 80 rupees into the worker's account itself, which can be recovered. Right? So the minimum wage is guaranteed as per the time rate system, and the additional incentive is given as per the piece rate system. Right? And towards the end, let us talk of a particular train that is being taken by the organizations nowadays. They call it as this three P's of wages and salaries, right? So here we to come out with the pay for position. P1 stands for pay for position. What we ensure is that each and everyone who is placed in a particular pay band, in a particular hierarchy, should be paid equal. This should be as per the payment for the job position. P2 says pay per person, right? So this is what the worker is paid for his efficiency, for his skill, knowledge, abilities. So capacity of the individual person doing the job, and E3 is pay for performances. So that is completely based on the outcome of the individual employee. Okay. So here we will come to the end of today's session, right? As we discussed today, that the time-based system, piece rate system, or balance rate method, these are the methods of payment of wages are there. Now, tomorrow we are going to discuss the incentive system. Next class, right, which we'll have on 28th, we'll discuss the various incentive systems, right? The individual incentive system, group incentive systems, all those things we are going to discuss it on the next class. So thank you very much, and we'll meet once again to discuss all those incentives. Thank you. Have a good